Hello and welcome to another Starfield episode here on the Mole RP channel. My name is ChaosMole and today we have the official lore timeline for Starfield. Now, before we jump into this, I have to make a few announcements and they are very important to understand this video. So the first thing is I've started this video over a month ago and prepared for its release a while ago. Then Bethesda has released their own timeline and I could actually upgrade my video and update it. So we are now here where this is the updated version with the official timeline incorporated. And more importantly, even though Bethesda has given us the official timeline, they conveniently left out quite a bit of information regarding things happened on the timeline of Starfield. So if you're wondering why in the video I'm sometimes jumping 50, 60, 80 or 100 years ahead in the future, it's not because I have forgotten something or became lazy. It's just because Bethesda didn't give us that information because they want us to actually experience it inside the game. Now, there is one last thing I have to mention here. At some point in the timeline, a bunch of people are just joining Constellation, and we are not really given any information who those people are, how they are important to us, and instead of just throwing 20 names at you with no meaning whatsoever, I will mention when that happens, and if you want to read up on those names, you can do that down below in the video description where you find the whole timeline. But in general, I will not go through every single name because they don't mean anything to you, and they are not, at least now, too important for the plot. And that also means I will come back with a more comprehensive video after the release of Starfield. Now, with that said, let's jump into the timeline of Starfield. It is the year 2050 and humans finally arrive on Mars. Another 50 years into the future, humans are living in space, and another 56 years into the future, humans arrive in Alpha Centauri. Now you might immediately ask, what the hell, Mole? You just jumped 100 years into the future. What happened? Well, unfortunately, Bethesda is not telling us, and I'm pretty sure this is something we will find out when we are playing the game when it comes out. But what I can tell you is nothing good happened, because in the Starfield Direct we meet a group of humans and they're completely flabbergasted to see another human, and they even say, oh, another human. We didn't expect anyone else leaving Earth. And it sounded more like leaving Earth in time because something bad is going on there, and not like, hey, we have Leaving Earth Day and everyone is leaving Earth, celebration, yay. No, it sounded pretty grim. So whatever happened on Earth, we have to play the game to find that out. But so far, it doesn't seem like anything good. And as I said, humans arrived on Alpha Centauri and they immediately started to figure out that they are planets and systems they can actually settle in, and that's exactly what they did. They started to settle a bunch of planets. So many so that 3 years down the line, they realized, hey, you know what? I think we need a government to govern all of this. And that's exactly what they did. They founded the United Colonies as the government. And good news, the United Colonies are actually a democratic elected government. They are trying to take care of the people. They are very open-minded, metropolitan, and they try to let their people leave their freedoms, right? And so at least at first glance, it sounds like the United Colonies are the good guys in the Starfield universe. Now, if that is true or not, we have to figure that out by playing the game. Another year into the future, humanity is also establishing New Atlantis, which is the biggest city Bethesda has ever created, so they say. Not just in size, but also the activities you can do there and the amount of NPCs. And it seems like New Atlantis will be the city everything is focusing on in Starfield. So much so that a year later, in 2161, it became the capital city of the United Colonies, and later on there will be more in this city, which is important to the timeline and the lore of the game. But as I said, New Atlantis is founded, the United Colonies are founded, and it seems like things are upwards for humanity, and they have finally established their own little government in Alpha Centauri. Now, what does humanity do, you might ask? Well, it's pretty simple. They are doing what they have been doing before. They started to settle more and more planets and more systems. And one of them was the planet Cheyenne, and the first city which was settled there was Akila City in the year 2167. That's 6 years into the future. Unfortunately, Cheyenne had two major issues. The first one was, when people started to settle on the planet, they started to realize, oh, wait a minute, that's weird. Seems like all the animals on this planet really like us, and oh my god, they are eating us alive. So humans were pretty scared by that, and they immediately started to do what humans are also pretty good at. They started to bring in the big guns, ships, cannons, fortifications. They started to build walls around their cities, and they also started to arm every living soul on this planet with guns. Yep, they armed them to the teeth. And as you always know, when there is like a lot of people with a lot of guns all together, that normally doesn't bode too well for the future. But for now, this is of course all to defend themselves, and it makes sense. But you probably also remember I mentioned there are two problems. And the second problem is Solomon Coe. Who's Solomon Coe? Well, we don't really know exactly. We know that he is an explorer, like pretty well known for that, and that he founded Akila City. But what we also know, and that is the problem, he hates the United Colonies. He really hates them. He doesn't want to be governed. He doesn't want to be part of the United Colonies, and he just wants to get the hell out of there. But for now, he cannot really do anything about it, and he just has to deal with being part of the United Colonies. Up till the year 2188, because then Solomon Coe is reaching out to the people of Volii, which is another system, and the planet, and he's like, hey, I also heard you don't like the United Colonies? Well, what a surprise. Me neither. And I have an idea. You know what? Let's battle together as the Freestar Collective. Do our own government, do our own thing, but much better than the United Colonies. And let's be real here. What are the United Colonies supposed to do about that? And well, he was right. They were establishing the Freestar Collective. They were declaring their independence from the United Colonies. And the United Colonies did nothing. They were not happy about it. They were actually pretty pissed. But what could they do? Starting a war just over that? Well, that would look pretty bad at home, so they didn't do anything besides of letting them go and be like, well, good luck, I guess. And so the Freestar Collective was established. Then we are jumping ahead into the year 2194. And the thing which happened here after the Freestar Collective was established is that the United Colonies realized, whoa, the clock is ticking. There is now a competitor in the system, and they also want to gain influence. They want to establish more colonies on different planets, and we have to move fast now. So what the UC did then is they did actually try to expand their borders, and they didn't just do this by asking people to join them, but they also tried to trick some people. And one of those people, or well, a whole group of people, were the people on Deepala in the Narion system. Because the UC did send a space station there called the Clinic, and they were basically saying, now that our space station is there, this is now UC territory, right? And the people of Deepala didn't want that. They were neutral, they didn't have anything to do with this, and they were like, no, remove this thing. We don't want to have anything to do with this. We are neutral. Well, the UC rejected that. And so the people of Deepala immediately reached out to the Freestar Collective, and they were like, hey folks, so we have a problem here with the United Colonies. How about we are joining the Freestar Collective and you will protect us? And the Freestar Collective, and especially Solomon Coe, was like, yo, on our ways. And they were on their way because they immediately did send out their fleet, their soldier, to protect the Narion system. The United Colonies also did that. They sent out their soldiers, their fleet, and it came to a standoff. And somewhere, somehow, pulled the trigger, and the Narion War began. And the really interesting part about this Narion War is, even though that technically the Freestar Collective and the United Colonies were now at war, they were not really at war, because the only fighting happened in the Narion system. Everywhere else in Alpha Centauri, nothing happened. They didn't fight against each other, besides of, as I said, in Narion system. So that's pretty interesting, right? However, this war lasted for quite some time. It was a bloody war. Tons of people died, like probably millions and millions. A lot of resources were burned. And all things considered, this was not going well. To be a little bit more precise, it wasn't going well for 20 years. That's how long the Narion War lasted. And thankfully, at some point, both sides came together and realized, wait a minute, this is going nowhere. Let's try to find an accord here. Let's try to set up some ground rules, how our both governments have to work with each other somehow in Alpha Centauri, and let's just set up a treaty. The treaty will be known as the Treaty of Narion, and is also signed by the United Colonies and the Freestar Collective, of course. And what is really interesting with this treaty is that they are setting up what the so-called settled system is. You know how they are always mentioning the settled system in Starfield and not call it Alpha Centauri, because that's what they are doing now. They call it settled systems, and what's in the settled systems is pretty simple. It decrees who can settle where, which planets they can own, and how they can spread their influence in Alpha Centauri. Or, well, at least that's the idea. We will see how that goes just a little bit later. Now, we are jumping another few years into the future. I know this is not a big one, but the Freestar Rangers are founded, which is an elite force dedicated to serving all citizens of the Freestar Collective, and I'm pretty sure that they are one of the groups you will follow through stories when you are joining up the Freestar Collective. Right. Now, let's jump into the year 2275, which is one of the most important years in the Starfield lore timeline, because it is the founding of Constellation. If you don't know what Constellation is, let me explain that very quickly to you. This is the main story faction. You would join Constellation right at the beginning of Starfield, and they are explorers. They are trying to understand the universe, and they are also trying to find out who those artifacts are and who made those artifacts, right? And Constellation is founded in the year 2275 by Sebastian Banks, and the Lodge, which is the main hub of the Constellation, is built in New Atlantis, and you will come back to this very often. Jumping ahead, it is the year 2305, and Barrett joins the Constellation. Now, you might remember that I said I don't want to mention all the people who are joining Constellation, but I do want to mention Barrett, because Barrett seems to be like a super important character in the lore. He has multiple very important encounters with the main story of the game, sometimes very convenient encounters to help to basically move Constellation forward, which is like, that's weird. And he is also meeting you, he is inviting you into Constellation, and as I said, Barrett seems to be like always there when people need him to move forward on the question of what is going on with the alien artifacts, right? So that's why I mentioned Barrett here, because I assume he will be very important for the main story. So we are now halfway through the timeline of Starfield, and the next years, I can already tell you, will be very eventful, because you still remember the Freestar Collective and the United Colonies and how they all signed those treaties and made sure that nobody is overstepping their corner of space. Well, unfortunately, in the year 2307, the Freestar Collective is forming a farming colony on Vesta in the lunar system. The problem is, they're not supposed to be there. That is a system the Freestar Collective is not allowed to go to, and they still do it. So another year into the future, the United Colonies is protesting against this, and they are like, hey, Freestar Collective, please leave that place immediately, you're breaking the treaty. And the only answer the Freestar Collective is sending back is a poop emoji, and it is the year 2308, where the United Colonies has enough of the bullshit, and they are pulling the trigger to what is known now as the Colony War. And the Colony War is very different to the Narion War, because the Narion War was only focused on one system. The Colony War, though, on the other hand, was focused on the complete settled system. United Colonies and the Freestar Collective were now at a full-blown war, and it should become a bloody one. But before we go into the nitty-gritty of this war, we have to jump another 2 years ahead in the year 2310, because Constellation is finding their first artifact, and it is stored in their archives. So that happened, and with that said, let's go back into the war. I just wanted to put this in here because I think it is a very important part of the storyline. But in the year 2311, the war is going not so great, at least not for the Freestar Collective, because they have completely underestimated the United Colonies, and they are getting pushed back. They're even getting pushed back so far that the Battle of Cheney commences. Yes, the United Colonies has pushed back the Freestar Collective to their main planet. And thankfully, the Freestar Collective had one last ace up their sleeves. They came together with their military forces and civilian ships to do some hit-and-run tactics on the main ships of the United Colonies, eliminating the complete chain of command in the military of the United Colonies. And the United Colonies had no other options left than to retreat after this happens and come together on a diplomatic way and just sign that they are not at war at each other again. So basically they signed a new treaty, and we will see how long that will last. But nonetheless, after this battle, the United Colonies realized, whoa, in the year 2315, that those civilian ships were very effective after they got their ass beaten at Cheney, and that they should probably do the same thing. So they're establishing the Vanguard, where they are counting on civilian ships doing a lot of their dirty work, and as the ultimate goal, you can actually get the citizenship for the United Colonies, which is very important for a lot of people. Now, with that said, for the next few years, a lot of people are now joining Constellation, and this is the part I will skip a little bit because, as I said, I would just throw names at you with no real explanation on who those people are, what their goals are, and so on and so forth. So we will skip a little bit ahead, and we will skip into the year 2326, where Barrett finds the original artifact in the Constellation archives. And no, it must be special. Like as I said before, Barrett has a lot of lucky moments, right? Like he's joining Constellation, he is now finding the original artifact, right? And now in the year 2328, Barrett is convincing Constellation to purchase the star station L868, nicknamed the Eye, which is probably the star station we have seen in the very first trailer of Starfield. So he also did that, and then later on he also meets you and brings you into Constellation. That is like a lot of lucky moments for the character who is just named Barrett, right? He doesn't even have a last name, his name is just Barrett. So very interesting to say the least. But Nonetheless, there's only one event left on the lore timeline of Starfield, and that is, well, the year 2330, and this is where your adventure begins, where Starfield begins. And we have to see what the future brings. We have to see how the timeline is changing after we are getting more information in the game, and I'm looking very much forward to finally play the game. I hope you enjoyed this timeline. If you did, I know it was a little bit bumpy here and there and a lot of information. I'm truly sorry for that. I will improve, that's for sure. But it was also for me like a lot of information. But as I said, if you enjoyed this, please don't forget to leave a like and also subscribe to the Mole RP channel for more Starfield videos. We also have a podcast here for Starfield coming out like every week or 2 weeks. And again, there are a lot of more Starfield videos planned, which are not just the usual, hey, this is the best build, and oh my god, you didn't know about this, right? If you want to have a bit of interesting topics around Starfield, then I would appreciate if you might subscribe to the channel. With that said, thank you so much for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.